Hello. Without further ado, I'm going to talk about what I think servant leadership is and how I've learned so much over this semester about how it changes your life and the lives of others. So I'm here on my street. This is where I live. I live here in this little room. Um, but I'm going to walk around the block, and I think it'll illustrate kind of what I'm getting at here. But essentially, servant leadership started out for me as a concept of you serve as a leader, and you serve selflessly, and the biggest example being Jesus Christ, who served selflessly, didn't ask anything in return, and doing so both affects your life and the life of others. I think unarguably, like that's pretty common sense. But I think in terms of our group, we definitely had moments where servant leadership was an especially important thing for all of us. I know that Maddie, Simona, and Jeremy and myself put a lot of work into implementing our system for Rick because we were a bit conflicted about it, but we decided to do it anyway. What we found out was that servant leadership is about more than just selflessly doing something for somebody at a particular moment. The philosophy of servant leadership, at least for me, and I think for my group as well, was continually being involved in someone else's life to improve their life. But not only just them, but continually doing that as well. So the act of continually performing the act of servant leadership. Because servant leadership doesn't end when you get out of a project, or at least that's what I've learned from this class and life in general. It ends when you either can't do it anymore or you're dead. So I think that you have to be very cognizant of where you are in life and what your philosophy is. And servant leadership is a great philosophy to take up in terms of making sure that you optimize and do the best you can while you're here. Because if you wait too long, you'll have all these missed opportunities to help other people through what you know and through the gifts that God gave you. So I think there are three things that I wanted to go over from Cashman and tie it back to my group that exemplify what this means. The first is that shadow beliefs are difficult things to get rid of when you're trying to be a servant leader. And here's why. I'll give a great example of my life this semester. So this semester I decided to take 5 classes, 2 business capstones, service and business policy. I decided to also work half-time at a job that I wasn't really prepared for, but that was great for me. I loved it, at a research laboratory. And to also look for another job and pay all my bills while I'm doing all of the above. What I've learned is that I'm not an invincible person. Emotionally speaking, I can, if I work too hard for a few weeks, I break down from where I think or thought I would break down. I thought my limits were a lot higher than they are. So Cashman's concept of shadow belief is one aspect that I have learned both from the way that my team managed their time and how I manage my time over the course of the semester. The second thing that I learned from Cashman was the concept of servant leadership and how we either cope with what our situation is, or we lead other people. And it's kind of hard to do two things at the same time, both personally and interpersonally. So you can't cope with the situation, just be barely surviving through a project, let's say, and also lead people through that project. And that's something that I learned from Maddie significantly when we were behind on our project a couple times, and it was hard for us to catch up. Sometimes you have to give up your leadership uh, clout in your application of leadership in terms of group cohesion to get the project done, because you're coping with your situation. On the other hand, if you have a lot of time and you're ahead of the game, you can really enhance group cohesion, serve others better that you're working with, and serve your client better. And I think that's what Cashman was really getting at, was making sure that we had an understanding of what it means to be a servant leader, and that it's not always nice. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices, either personally or interpersonally, to get the job done. But sometimes it can be just outright beautiful. The last thing I wanted to talk about was my overall experience this semester and how it's impacted my life. Going into this, I didn't know like how hard this semester would be in terms of what it would take out of me and my family and other aspects of my life. But I think just listening to your story and how you got to where you were, and my group's story and how they were brought up and what makes them tick, each tick, which I hope are explained in the evaluations in part 2, will show you kind of my take on life now, before and after. And each of the guys that were both in our class and in the group, and girls, have taught me so much about what it means to be a good human being, from helping other people to just being more of a stable, consistent person. For me, was probably the biggest lesson that I learned over the course of this semester. And each facet, whether it be Cashman, your stories and experiences that you brought up, the TED Talks, and the various other aspects, such as our teamwork that we had to do as a part of the class, helped show me that it's important not to sweat the small stuff in life, but to be really active in understanding where you're at, where you're going, and how you're getting there. So without further ado, it's kind of funny because when you walk around the block, much like servant leadership, you end up where you started. And I know this video went a little long, but I wanted to make sure I was thorough, and I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate your time that you put into the class, and I've most certainly had a lot of fun with my group, and just being able to learn so much. I think this will probably be one of my most memorable classes at Pepperdine. Thanks.